One of the most surprising shows for me in the spring 2022 anime season has definitely got to be Trapped in the Dating Sim. The world of Otome games is tough for mobs. Now, this is a series that I had literally zero expectations coming into it, and what I found is I was really enjoying it. Now, overall, the story isn't really doing anything extremely fascinating to me, but it just has a really solid main character that I'm intrigued and I like to watch him do what he does. He does these things that you kind of want to do. When something is put before him, you kind of agree with him and how he reacts to it, even though you could kind of argue that he's a scumbag. But at its core, something did grab me, and that was really around the idea of the antagonist character that he was faced against. Who was this person? And I was kind of intrigued to see how they would eventually bring the two of them together and resolving their conflict. But what I wasn't really expecting was having a really interesting twist on the idea of a character that doesn't want to be at the center of attention suddenly taking over the main character's role. But that's something I really want to explore and talk about in this particular video. This is sort of my mid-season impressions of the series, so if you have not watched the series and have no plans on watching the series, maybe you're just looking for a reason to watch it, or if you watch the show and you just want to hear somebody talk about it, that's what this video is for. So full-on spoilers from this point on as I get into it, up to episode 8, so it's not really mid-season, it's more way late season, but anyways, let's jump right into it. Now, to get people caught up that have not watched this series, essentially follows a guy who plays an Otome game for his sister because she doesn't want to play it, and after a while, he's so worn out, he ends up falling down some stairs and passing away. Well, he ends up waking up in a new world, which ends up being the world of the Otome game that he was just forced to play. So he knows all the characters, he knows the routes, he knows what's going on in this world, even though he thinks it's overly complicated and kind of a jumbled mess. But he realizes that he's a character that is a mob character, a character that's not a named character. He's not one of the main romances. He's not the main character because the main character is a female. So he realizes, you know what, I'm going to use my knowledge of that world and just enjoy my mob life. A mob basically being a character that is not a main role character. Just your random NPC. Well, after some time, he ends up getting dragged into having to go to this academy where the game kind of pretty much takes place at, where he's forced to have to find a love interest to marry. And so he sees all the main role characters. He sees all the princes that are all charming and beautiful. He sees the girl that's supposed to be the main character that charms those guys. But then he also sees one person that is not in the game itself, and he realizes really quickly that that one person is saying all the lines that the main character is supposed to say. Some girl has essentially taken over the game and took on the role as the main heroine. But he kind of lets that slide. He just lets it be until eventually he gets wrapped up in a conflict between the game's main villain and this girl who's taken over this role. It gives a shift in perspective. I like how it's this idea that when in the game itself, this girl is the antagonist. She's the evil princess lady that wants to take the princes away from the main girl. But in him taking part in this world, he's starting to realize the conflict that she's faced. The fact that this girl has given up her entire life for the prince, now he suddenly feels bad for her. This Angelica. Additionally, he also gets wrapped up in the main heroine, Olivia. This again is the girl that's supposed to get all these princes, and now she's just tossed aside. And like I said, while early on, the big hook that I had was, who was Marie? Marie is the girl that is essentially taking over the main heroine role. Who is she? She sort of gives the impression that, again, she knows all the lines that she's supposed to say. It sort of indicates that this is probably another isekai that's in this Otome game, and they're just playing out the roles. One of my early speculations was that it was going to be his sister from the previous world, somebody that knows the lines, maybe flubs a couple of them. And while unfortunately that was a hook for me early on, it kind of flubbed it. Honestly, the adaptation seemed to have flubbed it. It was a quick scene change and she just divulged it all in an inner monologue. It was a little bit of a letdown. But the thing that kept me going was that I kind of liked the main character. He was, again, doing the things that I wanted to do. When I felt bad for the main antagonist, Angelica, and the fact that she was pushed aside despite the fact that everything was for this prince, and obviously this Marie girl is just using these lines to swoon them all over. It created sort of an interesting take on the harem concept. The harem idea, that we all love the harem where the main character swoons all the girls and they're always around him and they're always fighting over him, but never really getting into the idea that it almost feels wrong, that all these boys gave up everything for this girl, and we know from our perspective is that she's just using lines to swoon them over. When the one prince says that she was the only one that understood me, she knew what I really liked, what food I actually liked. Well, Angelica can't answer what his favorite food is, Marie knows. Because again, Marie played the game. So it feels wrong. This girl has won over all these guys with lies. She has the walkthrough. But while we were so focused on how Marie had essentially won over all the princes, using this walkthrough essentially, using the answers that she needs, the lies essentially, to swoon them over and for them to give up their entire kingdoms for the sake of her, for a lie, one thing was brewing in the background. That while Marie was wrong for doing that, Leon suddenly gets a grim reminder that he too has been doing that in a different way. Again, our main character, Leon's whole point was to be a mob, to be out of the focus of everything. He even says that several times, I need to find a girl, despite the fact that Olivia and Angelica are right there, because in his mindset, in the game, I never get with them. I'm a mob character. So he keeps discounting them as possible love interests, and at the same time, doing the things to help Olivia all the way to the point where she no longer has a role. And that's where I found a very intriguing and very interesting take on this whole idea of being isekai into another world and playing a role. Now, honestly, I felt like the whole encounter between Olivia and Angelica, them trying to be friends, and then ultimately somebody telling them that Olivia is a commoner and that she's just garbage, and that Angelica has always seen her as a pet. It felt a little melodramatic. I'll just be perfectly honest. But I do like what was brewing in Olivia's head. It was that difficulty in, why is everybody helping me? Why is Leon helping me? What exactly does he want from me? Again, Leon doesn't see her as a love interest, so he's not loving or doting on her. He's just helping her because he feels bad for her. And at the same time, Leon is kind of passively just helping her with the walkthrough. Well, she needs these items to become the big priestess. So we need to go beat these bandits, and I'll give her the necklace or the dress or whatever she needs for her to become the final character. But where's Olivia in any of this? She's always at the sideline. And eventually gets to the point where she's conflicted about Angelica being Angelica's dog, being a commoner that shouldn't be conversing with these people. She ultimately breaks. And that was the point where I realized, oh yeah, that's what the writer's doing. Leon, who's the mob, the main character, is now becoming the protagonist of this game, even though he never really intended to. All because he's trying to help people and essentially doesn't like the princess. Let's be perfectly honest. He doesn't like these rich, snobby people that are always doing terrible things. And so in a sense, he is resolving all the conflicts because he just doesn't like them. So despite him wanting to remain as a mob, because he doesn't keep his nose out of situations because he doesn't like the bad things that happen, he has become the main character and essentially removed the actual main character, which is Olivia. So what does Olivia become? A mob. So the question that I come from this point on is I'm really curious to see what exactly happens with Olivia. Obviously, she proposed the worst word a female can ever ask a male, which is, do you just do this for my body? Which ends up being, I say no, and that means that you don't think I'm attractive, and if you say yes, that means you're a terrible sexist person. So there's no good answer for him to give at this point, but I'll be curious to see if it's going to turn to one of those things where he's going to have to realize, I need to start propping up Olivia. Rather than always doing everything for her, she needs to do it. I need to just put her in the position of doing it. And I think that's what's going to end up happening, is that he finally realizes, oh yeah, I got to become a mob again and just support her so that she can become the main character again. Because otherwise, why is she even here? I'm just dragging her around to everything that she should have been doing herself. The things that build her confidence, the things that create her as a character, and the things that make her who she is. He's been playing the game for so long, he doesn't realize that these are actually people, or so we think. At the same time, I can see that Angelica will be a great crucial role in that as a supporter as well. Somebody that was once the antagonist is now essentially the supporter of the protagonist. But either way, we'll see. Leon's kind of a nasty person. Like I said, he's kind of a scumbag, but I think when push comes to shove, he does realize when he's doing something wrong. So I'll be curious to see how it turns out. I've been, like I said, very much surprised by this series. I think I've had like 2 episodes that I didn't like, the first and I think the 4th one. But other than that, it's been a fantastic series and I've been enjoying it a lot. So I hope you guys enjoy this video. As always, if you did like this video, hit that like button down below. Comment, let me know what you're thinking of this series so far. As always, if you want to support us additionally, you can subscribe to the channel, share this video, support us on Patreon, or through our tips link in the description below. We definitely appreciate it, but it does. And y'all take care.